I'm Nova.
I'm Alloy, and this is AgentStack Daily.
Today, OpenClaw 5.28 and Claude Code .168 lead the agent harness cycle, and the cycle opens with a Friday, June 5 outage that hit the Claude stack for 2 hours across the API, Claude Code, Claude.ai, and Claude Cowwork, primarily Opus 4.7 and 4.8, with Down Detector peaking near 1,000 reports. The OpenClaw 6.5 Beta 2 pre-release switched release trains to a monthly patch numbering scheme with the June floor pinned at 5.28, introduced a parallel bundled web search provider, added MCP tool result coercion for non-text and non-image blocks, fixed Anthropic extended thinking recovery after prompt cache expiry, and patched a macOS node mode reconnect path that was silently tearing down healthy gateway sessions. Claude Code .168 landed the next day to close session attachment, stream JSON event ordering, and interrupt handling regressions exposed by the outage window. After the harness block, OpenAI is rebuilding ChatGPT into a coding agent superapp ahead of its IPO. Apple WWDC 2026 leans on a Gemini-built Siri. Anthropic widens Project Glasswing to 150 organizations. Microsoft ships MAI Thinking 1 and MAI Code 1 Flash into Copilot, and Gemma 412B hits the 16 GB local Mac sweet spot as an encoder-free multimodal model.
The cycle puts the harness layer first because that is where agent reliability gets built or broken. A 2-hour outage on Friday, a bug fix release the next day, and a monthly cadence switch on a different harness is the operational pattern that makes the AgentStack production grade. The model lane is dense, with 5 stories that touch every layer from superapps to local models. The Project Radar closes the loop with Cheetah Claws as a Python-native harness and the A2A protocol reaching version 1 under the Linux Foundation.
3 layers are moving at once, and the most useful way to keep them separate is to lead with the harness layer because that is where operators feel the work. The agent harness cycle this week touched every primary surface that operators actually touch: release cadence, session attachment, the search provider, the prompt cache recovery path, and the macOS reconnect path. The model layer is what determines the quality of what the agent produces, and the model lane is heavy. The tooling layer is the Project Radar that fills in the gaps between the major releases.
The Claude stack took a roughly 2-hour hit on Friday, June 5 starting at 11:19 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Anthropic confirmed elevated error rates across Claude API, Claude Code, Claude.ai, and Claude Cowwork, with the disruption primarily hitting Opus 4.7 and 4.8. Down Detector peaked near 1,000 US reports, 40% Claude Chat, 33% Claude Code, 20% the Claude app. Anthropic's status page showed the incident resolved by early Friday afternoon, and the public statement was that success rates had returned to expected levels.
Claude Code .168 is the next-day response, published June 6 at 23:41 Universal Time Coordinated, 1 day after the .166 and .167 release wave. This is a focused bug fix release, not a feature release, and the cleanup targets 3 surfaces that are exactly where background agent work goes wrong silently. Session attachment that fails cleanly means a running task survives reconnect. Stream JSON event ordering that mishandles events means a tool call drops midstream. An interrupt handler that swallows a key press means a session looks like it is hanging when it actually accepted input and is waiting on the model.
The OpenClaw line is moving on a different axis. The 6.5 Beta 2 pre-release published June 7 carries the new monthly patch numbering scheme, and the June 2026 floor is pinned at 5.28. The meaningful change is structural. The release train has switched to a monthly cadence, and the version naming scheme has changed from the prior year-month minor pattern to year-month patch. Pre-transition tags remain compatible, which means nothing breaks on upgrade and existing 6.1 deployments continue to work.
The model lane leads with OpenAI rebuilding ChatGPT as a coding agent superapp, then Apple's Gemini-built Siri reset at WWDC 2026, then Anthropic widening Project Glasswing, then Microsoft's MAI family landing in Copilot, and finally Gemma 412B as the local multimodal model that fits in 16 GB of unified memory. The Project Radar covers Cheetah Claws as a Python-native harness and the A2A protocol reaching version 1 under the Linux Foundation.
The Friday, June 5 outage is the real-world reason the bug fix release landed the next day. The elevated error rate pattern across multiple model SKUs and multiple chat surfaces, Claude API, Claude Code, Claude.ai, and Claude Cowork, primarily hitting Opus 4.7 and 4.8 is a recognizable signature. The pattern usually traces to inference routing or load balancer issues at the model tier boundary, where a routing layer decides which inference pool serves a given SKU and the routing layer's health checks do not catch the failure fast enough. The result is a window during which requests for a specific model land on degraded backends, and the model surfaces the elevated error rate because the response time is high or the response shape is wrong.
The public telemetry was real. Down detector peaked near 1,000 US reports, with the report split landing at 40% Claude Chat, 33% Claude Code, and 20% the Claude app. Anthropic status page showed the incident resolved by early Friday afternoon, and the public statement was that success rates had returned to expected levels. The outage window is also the real-world stress test that exposed the regressions in point 167 session attachment issues, stream.json event ordering bugs, and interrupt handling problems all match failure modes operators reported during the same window.
Claude Code point 168 is the cleanup pass. The npm latest dist tag is now point 168, and the npm stable dist tag remains point 153. The gap between latest and stable is intentional. Anthropic uses the latest dist tag to roll forward through cleanup releases while keeping stable pinned to a known good build for fleet environments that prefer not to chase every point release. The behavior delta between point 167 and point 168 is in session stability, not in capability. Background sessions that were stuck should resume cleanly. Stream.json consumers that were receiving truncated or duplicated tool events should see clean event ordering. Interactive users who pressed interrupt at the start of a turn and watched the session ignore the key press should now see the interrupt accepted.
For operators, the move is to confirm you are on point 168. If you have been holding a background session that was exhibiting stream.json stalls or interrupt issues on point 167, the upgrade should resolve them. For outage resilience, the Anthropic status page and the incident RSS feed are the correlation point. Local model errors and platform incidents can be matched in real time. Long-lived Claude API sessions that may have ended mid-call during the Friday window are worth rotating, because a session that ends mid-call can leave a connection in a state that does not recover cleanly on the next call.
The OpenClaw line is moving on a different axis, and the structural change is the headline. The release train has switched to a monthly cadence, and the version naming scheme has changed. The June 2026 floor is pinned at 5.28 after the published beta, which means the next stable OpenClaw release lands on a monthly cadence with a year-month patch version number. The scheme change is the kind of operational maturity signal that fleet managers track. A predictable release train means version pins can be planned, change windows can be scheduled, and the surprise factor of a major version bump is removed.
The June pre-release bundle itself is dense, and the most operationally meaningful change is the parallel bundled web search provider. The bundled provider replaces an external dependency with an in-process implementation, and the win is latency and reliability on the search path. The bundled provider removes a network hop and a third-party API surface, which means a tool call that returns search results no longer depends on an external service being up. For code mode tasks that hit the search provider frequently, the latency improvement is the operationally visible win.
MCP tool result coercion is the second change. The new coercion layer handles non-text and non-image result blocks uniformly, so a tool that returns a structured payload no longer needs a custom adapter for the agent to consume it. A tool that returns a JSON object, a file reference, or a binary blob now lands in the agent's context in a form the model can reason about directly. The third change is Anthropic extended thinking recovery after prompt cache expiry. The recovery layer preserves extended thinking context across a prompt cache role, which means the model no longer pays the rederivation tax when the prompt cache is invalidated. For long-running agent loops that rely on extended thinking, the recovery layer removes a class of latency spikes that previously hit at unpredictable intervals.
The macOS node mode reconnect pinning fix is the fourth change, and it addresses a subtle operational class. The bug caused a macOS node to silently self-reconnect away from a healthy direct gateway session. The fix pins the node to the direct gateway path until that path is genuinely unhealthy, which means a node that is happily talking to the gateway no longer tears down and rebuilds its connection on a transient. Stable OpenClaw remains at 6.1 from June 3, and the pre-release 6.5 Beta 2 is the evaluation path for operators who want to track the monthly cadence as it lands.
The other harness lines held their positions this cycle. Hermes Agent remains at version 0.16, OpenAI Codex CLI remains at 0.137, and Anti-Gravity CLI is on continuous delivery. The held positions are themselves a signal. 3 of the major harness surfaces are stable, and the activity this week is concentrated on Claude Code and OpenClaw. The combination of a same-week outage, a next-day bug fix, and a monthly cadence switch on a different harness is the AgentStack's new operational rhythm, and the rhythm is what makes the stack production grade.
The Financial Times reported June 7 that OpenAI plans a ChatGPT Superapp, preparing the biggest overhaul since launch. The pitch from inside the company is blunt, and a senior OpenAI employee told The Foot that chat is dead. The new ChatGPT is being rebuilt as a unified superapp that folds in codecs, AI agents, image generation, and third-party services, a single product surface that does the work instead of conversing about it. Thibaut Sotios, who leads OpenAI's core product and platform, framed the goal as a personal agent capable of helping you across everything in your life, be it personally or at work.
The strategic context is an IPO race. Anthropic filed confidentially on June 1. OpenAI is expected to follow in the coming weeks, with the typical confidential S1 window opening in the Q3 to Q4 range. Anthropic's annualized revenue hit $47 billion in May, up from $30 billion earlier this year, mostly on Claude Code and the Mythos preview. OpenAI is being told by investors that it needs a clearer revenue path, and the Superapp is it. The competitive read is that the lab with the most legible enterprise revenue model wins the IPO narrative, and OpenAI is rebuilding the narrative in real time.
The move also explains the Sora wind down. In March, The Wall Street Journal reported that OpenAI was abandoning side quests like the standalone Sora video product. The Superapp strategy confirms that OpenAI is consolidating its surface area into a single revenue product instead of a portfolio of experiments. ChatGPT plugins, the company's first attempt at this consolidation in March 2023, did not stick. The 2026 attempt has a different foundation. Codex is real, agentic coding is paying, and the enterprise customer already has a single sign-on path. The chat is dead framing is the marketing reset, the previous framing was assistant, the current one is coworker.
The architectural shift is from a chatbot with attached plugins to a unified superapp surface. The previous design pattern was a chat surface that called out to plugins through a tool use layer. The new design pattern inverts that. Codex is the agent primitive that other surfaces compose on top of. A unified agent primitive means a single sign-on path, a single billing path, a single auth path, and a single execution model. The 2023 plugins attempt did not have Codex as a foundation, and that is the difference between a plugin marketplace and a real superapp.
The enterprise per token billing model is the revenue path investors are pricing in. A single revenue product that bundles chat, code, image, and agents means an enterprise customer can be billed for usage across the full surface, and the per token metering is the lever OpenAI can use to translate agentic work into revenue. The superapp consolidation is the move that makes that billing model land cleanly, because per seat pricing for chat does not capture the value of an agent that runs for hours.
The Sora wind down is the signal of OpenAI's product philosophy. A standalone video product that does not compose with Codex is a side quest. A video surface that is part of the superapp, callable through Codex, is a product feature. OpenAI is consolidating its surface area, and the consolidation is happening on a deadline that ends at the IPO. The investor framing is clear: one product, one billing model, one revenue story.
For operators, the move is to audit which OpenAI products you currently use standalone and identify which would collapse into the superapp if it ships. If you have a ChatGPT team or enterprise seat, watch for an admin-side migration notice. If you are using Sora or other sunset-prone products, note the data export path before the consolidation. If you have a ChatGPT plugins integration from 2023, evaluate whether the new Superapp surface is a drop-in replacement or requires a rebuild.
WWDC 2026 opens June 8 at 10 a.m. Pacific Time with a pre-recorded keynote streamed from Apple Park. This is Tim Cook's last WWDC as CEO before he hands the role to John Turnus in September. The headline is the Siri overhaul Apple has been teasing and delaying since WWDC 2024. The new Siri is built on a custom Gemini model developed jointly with Google's Gemini team as part of the January 2026 Apple-Google partnership.
The reported feature set is a step change. The new Siri is more conversational, context-aware, capable of multi-step task handling, capable of app-spanning actions, and the new Siri is a standalone app that can compete with ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini directly. The standalone Siri app is the architectural move, a first-class app on the home screen that opens to its own system tray, not an integrated surface buried in settings. The standalone app is the answer to the question of whether Siri is a feature or a product, and Apple is now saying it is a product.
Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reports a new visual intelligence section in the camera app that uses Google image search for object recognition. Reports also point to AI-driven photos features, AI wallpapers tied to user mood, expanded Genmoji, and an App Store AI agent integration. The operating system lineup ships as iOS 27, iPadOS 27, macOS 27, watchOS 27, and visionOS 27. iOS 27 needs to accommodate Apple's first foldable iPhone shipping in September, and the iPhone Fold is expected to support two apps side-by-side for the first time, with an iPad-like display when open.
The architectural shape of the new Siri is a custom Gemini model that Apple and Google reportedly co-developed, likely a Gemini 3 backbone with Apple-tuned on-device variants. The joint model family serves both Android and Google through one API surface, and iOS and macOS through a separate API surface. The on-device and cloud inference split is the key design choice. On-device model runs the simple path, cloud model runs the agentic and multi-step path, with a routing layer that decides based on the request type. The routing layer is the secret sauce that makes the partnership work for both companies.
The privacy and on-device trade-off that the Apple-Google partnership structure implies is real. Apple gets the model capability, Google gets a billion-device distribution surface for Gemini, and both wrap the data in their respective privacy and licensing terms. The question operators should ask is how the cloud routing layer handles data, what gets sent to Google, what stays on device, and what the kill switch looks like for the cloud path. The Siri app's data handling policy and the cloud routing path are the first enterprise questions worth asking the Apple account team about.
For operators, the move is to install the iOS 27 or macOS 27 beta when it lands in the developer track after the keynote and test the new Siri conversational layer against your current ChatGPT or Claude app to compare multi-step task handling. The standalone Siri app is worth exploring as a daily driver to see how it positions against ChatGPT and Claude. If you are an enterprise iOS shop, ask your Apple account team about the Siri app's data handling and cloud routing policies before rolling it out as a default surface.
Anthropic announced June 2 that Project Glasswing, its joint industry program to find and fix critical software vulnerabilities using AI, is expanding to about 150 new organizations across more than 15 countries. The expansion covers power, water, healthcare, communications, and hardware, industries that were not well represented in the original 50-partner cohort that got Claude Mythos preview access in April. New access is going to US-based identity and security vendor Okta, South Korean companies Samsung, SK Hynix, and SK Telecom, NATO, the EU cybersecurity agency NSA, and others.
The original cohort has reportedly used Mythos to find more than 10,000 high or critical security flaws. Anthropic says it is working as quickly as we can to safely release Mythos-level capabilities to the public, but the public release waits 4 highly robust safeguards to prevent misuse. Politico reported this week that Anthropic has pledged to make Mythos-class models available to all customers in the coming weeks. Anthropic's IPO timeline, confidentially filed June 1, is in the same window. The company needs a Mythos-class public model launch and a security story strong enough for an S1 to land.
The architectural shape of Mythos Preview is a vulnerability discovery model rather than a general assistant. The training pipeline is specialized, reinforcement learning from human feedback tuned on CVE datasets, red team reinforcement learning on synthetic vulnerability scenarios, and a focused context window and tool surface optimized for code and protocol analysis. The model is not a general-purpose model with cyber fine-tuning bolted on. It is a focused model that treats vulnerability discovery as the primary capability, and the context window and tool surface are shaped around that.
Project Glasswing's pre-public review is being used to harden release safeguards before the public model lands. The review pipeline covers pre-deployment red team exercises, finding class-aware guardrails that gate model output based on the vulnerability class being discussed, and a document review pipeline that flags sensitive findings before they are returned to the caller. The public release waits for those safeguards to be validated against a broader organization set, and the 150 partner expansion is the larger validation surface.
What Mythos class capabilities means for the public release tier is the open question. Mythos Preview sits above Opus in the current lineup, and the public release could land as a new top tier above Opus with a separate pricing lane, or as an Opus refresh with the safety scaffolding already built in. The pricing signal matters because Mythos Preview access is currently controlled, and a paid public tier would convert the preview pipeline into a revenue stream. The IPO timing and the Mythos public release are the two events that have to land cleanly for the S1 narrative to hold.
The competitive context is real. OpenAI offers GPT 5.5 Cyber to UK banks that Anthropic has so far blocked from Mythos previews. The UK AI Security Institute tested both models and reported a similar level of performance. That result is the signal that the frontier is genuinely bifurcating. Both labs have a cyber-capable model, both are gatekeeping access carefully, and both are pitching safety framing to differentiate. The public release shape will be driven as much by market pressure as by internal safety review.
For operators, the move is to monitor the Mythos public release announcement and the Mythos Preview FAQ for the wider rollout signal. If you are an enterprise buyer, ask your Anthropic account team for the Mythos class public release timeline and the pricing tier it will land at. For security teams, read the Project Glasswing Partnership Program docs to see whether your industry sector is now eligible for preview access. For the AgentStack, watch for the public Mythos API surface. A new tool use tier or a separate Mythos model identifier would be the integration signal that the public release is close.
Microsoft used Build 2026 on June 2 to announce its first in-house advanced reasoning model and a full pipeline of supporting models. MAI Thinking 1 is a medium-sized model that Microsoft says matches leading models on key software engineering benchmarks. MAI Code 1 Flash is positioned as inference efficient and is integrated into GitHub Copilot and Visual Studio Code. That is the most stack-relevant drop for the AgentStack, because MAI Code is now a first-party Microsoft option for code mode flows in the editor most agents are already wired into.
MAI Image 2.5, and a Flash variant, handles text-to-image and image editing. MAI Transcribe 1.5 is 5 times faster than competing models on speech-to-text. MAI Voice 2, with a Flash version coming soon, adds 15 new languages and new voice options. PCMag tested all 4 and called the new MAI family fine, and that's about the best I can say about them. The reasoning is competitive, the image and voice models are functional but not differentiated, and the takeaway is that Microsoft now has a working in-house model lineup that can substitute for OpenAI across image, voice, and code paths.
MAI Thinking 1's medium-sized reasoning architecture is the trade-off versus larger reasoning models like Mythos or GPT 5.5 Pro. The base model is smaller, and the reasoning capability is built through specialized reasoning layers and test-time compute scaling. The model spends more compute per query on a smaller base, rather than less compute per query on a larger base. The smaller base with stronger reasoning reinforcement learning is the bet. The training pipeline used GitHub Copilot production harnesses as a data source, which is a meaningfully different training philosophy than what most labs have been shipping.
The MAI Code 1 Flash integration surface is the part that matters most for the AgentStack. GitHub Copilot and VS Code are the editor surfaces most agents are already wired into, and MAI Code is now a first-party model option in the model picker. The Copilot extension API is the primary integration surface, the VS Code language server is the deep integration path, and the model picker in the editor is the user-facing entry point. An operator who enables MAI Code 1 Flash in Copilot settings gets a first-party Microsoft Code model behind the same completion and chat surface they already use.
The MAI model family slots into Microsoft's broader OpenAI independence strategy. The substitution capability across image, voice, code, and reasoning is the renegotiation lever for the OpenAI contract. Microsoft is no longer solely dependent on OpenAI for the model layer of its product surface, and that is the strategic point. The capability is fine today, but the optionality it provides is what makes the MAI family matter for the AgentStack.
The cost and latency shape of inference-efficient code models in production is the operational question. MAI Code 1 Flash is positioned as inference-efficient, and the per-token cost is lower than frontier models, but the per-token cost is not the only metric. The latency budget for editor completion flows is tight. Completion suggestions that arrive after the developer has moved past the cursor are useless, and the batch size and request rate characteristics determine whether the model can serve an enterprise install of Copilot at peak. Independent benchmark confirmation on SWE-bench Pro and SWE-bench Verified is the open question, and vendor claims on those benchmarks are worth treating with the usual skepticism until independent confirmation lands.
For operators, the move is to enable MAI Code 1 Flash in GitHub Copilot settings and run a code completion comparison against your current default model. Try MAI Image 2.5 through the Microsoft Foundry Playground to compare output against your current image provider. Test MAI Voice 2 across one of the new supported languages for a TTS workload. Audit any OpenAI dependencies in your agent stack to identify where MAI can substitute. For SWE bench results, watch for independent confirmation of the MAI thinking one claim before assuming parity with the leading tier.
Google released Gemma 412b on June 3, 2026, a 12 billion parameter openweights model with an Apache 2.0 license, designed to run locally on a standard laptop with 16 GB of VRAM or unified memory. The architectural shift is the encoder-free unified design. Raw audio waveforms and visual patches flow directly into the LLM backbone without secondary processing modules, which means the model can hear, see, and reason without a routing layer.
The context window is 256K tokens, with native agentic tool use capabilities and a step-by-step reasoning mode. Gemma 412b is available immediately on Hugging Face, Kaggle, and through Google AI Edge Gallery, which launched on macOS the same day. The companion Google AI Edge Eloquent Dictation app is also available on Mac. The 5 Google models available in AI Edge Gallery for Mac are all from the Gemma family, tuned for instruct behavior, instruction following rather than text completion.
The encoder-free architecture matters because it removes the latency and memory overhead of separate audio and vision encoders. The traditional multimodal design routes audio and vision through dedicated encoders that produce embeddings, and the embeddings are then concatenated with the text token stream and fed into the LLM. The encoder-free design skips the encoder stage and feeds the raw audio and vision tokens directly into the LLM, which means the model learns to handle audio and vision as part of the same token stream. The latency win is real. A multimodal request no longer pays the encoder inference cost, and the memory win is real. The encoder weights are gone from the working set.
The 256K context window is the other architectural bet. A 12 billion parameter model with a 256K context window is a real capability for local agent stacks. The implementation is likely a hybrid attention pattern, sliding window attention layers for the recent context, full attention layers for the anchors, and aggressive KV cache quantization to fit the 256K context in 16 GB of unified memory. The 256K window means a local agent can hold an entire small codebase or a long document in context without a retrieval step, and the trade-off is the per token latency of the long context path.
The native agentic tool use capability surface is the other key piece. Gemma 412b ships with a structured output format that an agent loop can consume directly, with no adapter layer required. A local agent that can run entirely on a 16 GB Mac with multimodal input, long context, and tool use is a meaningful capability for a privacy-sensitive workflow, an offline workflow, or a cost-sensitive workflow that does not want to pay per token for cloud inference.
The licensing and redistribution shape under Apache 2.0 is the commercial signal. Commercial use, fine-tuning, and redistribution are allowed without per token or per call cost. A team that fine-tunes Gemma 412b on a private corpus and deploys the fine-tuned variant in a private inference environment is not paying a per-call fee to Google. The per-call economics are entirely a function of the inference hardware, and that is the shape of local-first agent stacks.
For operators, the move is to pull the Gemma 412b checkpoint from Hugging Face and run it through Google AI Edge Gallery on a Mac with 16 GB of unified memory. Compare one coding task output against your current local model. Test the 256K context window on a real codebase or a long document understanding task. Try the audio input with the AI Edge Eloquent Dictation app. For a fine-tuning evaluation, run a small domain adaptation on a private corpus and deploy the fine-tuned variant in a private inference environment to evaluate the per-call economics.
One brief MCP note this week. OpenAI is rolling out lockdown mode and active sessions for ChatGPT on June 8, bringing two-account security controls more broadly available. Lockdown mode limits outbound network requests to reduce data exfiltration from prompt injection attacks, and active sessions lets users review where their account is signed in. The controls land on personal and self-serve business accounts. The same MCP ecosystem that produced the late May audit is moving fast on the response side, and the scanner surface and the server hardening surface are both receiving updates. That is a one-paragraph blip, not a deep dive. The news cycle is model-heavy this week.
The lane to watch: as more MCP servers connect to the AgentStack, the operational practice of treating each connected server as a network service with a documented input validation review becomes the default, not the exception. Lockdown mode is the user-facing signal that prompt injection is now treated as a first-class threat, and the audit then hardened cadence is the ecosystem response. The scanner and server hardening updates are the supply side of the same response, and the demand side is operators treating their MCP server list with the same care as a firewall rule list.
Cheetah Clause 3.05 is a Python-native multimodal agent harness from SafeRL Lab, designed as a readable alternative to the compiled TypeScript bundle most agent harnesses ship as. The release landed June 4 with Claude code-style quiet output as the default behavior. The agent loop fits in roughly 740 lines of Python, and the model support list is broad: Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, Kimi, Qwen, Jipu, DeepSeek, several others, Ollama, LM Studio, and any OpenAI-compatible endpoint.
The feature set covers runtime tool registration with MCP and Git plugins, markdown skills for declarative capability definition, a task dependency graph with blocks and blocked by semantics, two-layer context compression, offline voice, cloud session sync, and bridges to Telegram, WeChat, Slack, and QQ. The repo has over 700 stars with activity concentrated in the agent loop and task graph. The trade-off is real: error handling on provider failures, retry logic on transient tool errors, and observability hooks are thinner than a mature harness like Claude Code. The Python native design choice is the pitch, and the readability of the agent loop is the proof.
The A2A protocol reached version 1 in 2026 under the Linux Foundation. Originally launched by Google, A2A is now governed alongside MCP. The protocol defines agent cards, JSON capability manifests for agent discovery, and a task-based state machine for long-running interactions using JSON RPC 2.0. The MCP versus A2A distinction is the key mental model. MCP standardizes how an agent connects to external tools, databases, and data sources. A2A standardizes how agents communicate with each other.
The repository has more than 24,000 stars and active development, and the protocol has reached sufficient maturity that builders should be aware of it when designing multi-agent workflows. A Claude Code session can delegate to a Hermes agent, or an OpenClaw agent can hand off to a Codex thread, through the same protocol surface. The handoff protocol is the interoperability layer the AgentStack has been missing, and version 1.0 is the formalization signal that the protocol is stable enough to depend on.
For operators, the move is to clone the cheetah clause repo, read the agent module in 740 lines, run one task with quiet output enabled, and connect it to a Llama local or OpenRouter. Read the A2A version 1.0 specification and identify one multi-agent handoff point in your workflow where agent cards could replace a custom integration. The two projects together close the multi-model and multi-agent gaps that have been the AgentStack's biggest architectural debt.
The practical cue this week is short and concrete. For Claude Code, confirm you are on point 168. If you have been holding a background session that was exhibiting stream.json stalls or interrupt issues on point 167, the upgrade should resolve them. For outage resilience, the Anthropic status page and the incident RSS feed are the correlation point. Local model errors and platform incidents can be matched in real time, and long-lived Claude API sessions that may have ended mid-call during the Friday, June 5 window are worth rotating.
For OpenClaw, decide whether to track the June pre-release at the new monthly cadence or hold stable on 6.1 based on your version pin policy. For OpenAI ChatGPT, audit standalone products that will collapse into the Superapp and note data export paths for any sunset-prone service. Install the iOS 27 or macOS 27 beta after WWDC and test the new Siri against ChatGPT or Claude for multi-step task handling.
For Anthropic, monitor the Mythos public release announcement and ask your account team for the timeline. For Microsoft, enable MAI Code 1 Flash in GitHub Copilot and run a completion test against your current default model. For Gemma 412b, pull the checkpoint and run it on a 16 GB Mac to compare one coding task against your current local model. For Cheetah Clause, clone the repo and read the 740-line agent loop. For A2A, read the version 1 specification and identify one handoff point in your workflow where agent cards could replace a custom integration.
That is the cycle. Harness first, model lane second, project radar third, practical queue last. The Claude Friday outage is a reminder that the AgentStack now has real production reliability concerns, and the next day bug fix release is the operational pattern that makes those concerns manageable. OpenClaw's monthly cadence switch is the next layer of operational maturity on the harness side. The model lane is dense, the Superapp story sets the IPO narrative, the Siri reset is the Apple bet, the Mythos rollout is the Anthropic S1 anchor, MAI code lands in the editor you already use, and Gemma 412b is the local first baseline. For the full show notes with links and the chapter slate, look at the show notes at tobyonfitnesstech.com.
Thanks for listening to AgentStack Daily.
We'll be back soon.